Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back for the Anime Podcast Show. Right here, I'll be talking about my favorite series. I'll be talking about in different topics or whatever in the segments if I'm something it'd be interest on me. So, for this week's episode, in the first segment, as we're going to kick off, is anime series I got into during post-pandemic era. Well, shit. The goddess has been answered, because we are already headed into a fan service. I know y'all would enjoy this, but I know there's some people are not a fan of those type of series like this, but let me break it down. She's a cosplayer, and he helps her in My Dress Up Darling. So the series I am talking about is My Dress Up Darling, yes, or in the other title, calls The Bisque Doll Falls in Love. It's a Japanese manga series written and illustrated by Shinichi Fukuda. It was published in Young Gaina from January 2018 to March of 2025 for over 15 volumes been released. So what is the synopsis and premise of this series? Well, let me break it down. We introduce two characters, and one is Gojo, and his passion is to craft Hina dolls, cause him to hide his interest due to social trauma. However, we introduce another character, and she's a beautiful and a popular classmate, and her name is Marin Kitagawa. She discovers his talent and doesn't want to take that potential away from him. So, she's taking an approach to ask him to help her to create cosplay characters from her favorite anime series or mangas. To encourage him to, he has a potential, what he wants to do in life. And with Marin's support, he steps out of his comfort zone and gain confidence. Work together, and they continued a unique and beautiful costumes showcasing their talents and true selves. And of course, times it's all slice of life / wholesome, but there'll be some times will be some fan service and all that shit, but still, it's a very interesting series. If anyone's interested, I highly recommend. If you're not a fan of that, yeah, it's not your thing. If you want to read the manga or watch the anime, it's whatever you choose. So anyway, as for the anime, it was announced in April 2021. It produced by Cleverworks. The first season aired from January to March of 2022, and the second season followed, and that was aired in July to September 2025. Now, how did I got into the series anyway? Well, this is a very shitty, crazy coincidence. It was around in late March to early April of 2022 when I first heard about it, and at the time, everyone on social media was obsessed with it. So I had a thought going, alright, I'll give it a shot. At the first glance, I was like, nah, it's your niche rom-com series. And it's about an ordinary kid, Gojo, who is passionate about crafting traditional dolls. Then he meets Marin, who is hot, attractive, sexy. But let's be real here. But what really took my surprise is she's super into cosplaying. So you've got these two characters, Gojo and Marin, coming from a total different world, and somehow it just works. And they worked building a friendship naturally, and then it begins into development into something else. As we all know in the manga, they're already married. And then, I think in the epilogue, I believe, they have a child. And of course, Marin and Gojo, they literally in love with each other until she blurted out as of now the manga made that. But in the anime, we don't get to see that until maybe some point in the third season or maybe a fourth season. I don't know where the heck we are in how they're going to adapt it, because as of now, we have no word on it. So I'll mention about that. So after I binged season 1, I honestly fell in love with it. And there was so much potential for a second season. Especially because, let's be real here, a lot of anime these days fall into their second season curse. I'll be talking about that on the final episode of this season, why anime is always being cursed. So, when I heard that a second season got announced, I was really excited. But then, nothing. We had no update. I mean, I get it. Anime takes a long time to produce and animate. But it had me worrying about what's going to happen with it. And I get it. Then we fast forward to 2025, that was last year. And out of nowhere, we finally got a confirmation that a second season is starting to air by this point. And I'm not gonna lie, when it dropped, I jumped in straight to the first episode in Japanese. And to be honest, I don't need to wait for the dub because I'm in love with the Japanese cast. I love them so much. And after I first saw the first teaser they dropped when they ready to set to premiere it back then, and I was like, I'm hooked. I'm hooked, fam. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And honestly, the whole season itself of season 2, I really enjoyed the most. I think my favorite cosplay moment, it has to be the Nun one. The Nun episodes. They were so interesting. And in seeing our characters getting together, and I was so surprised with how they done it. Props to Cleverworks, fam. They did a splendid job. Overall, My Dress Up Darling is a really fun series, and I definitely recommend. But if you're interested, but like I said, just a heads up, there'll be some couple of fan service, so keep in mind. But yeah, that was my interest with My Dress Up Darling. Now let's move on to a new segment on the show. Oh, I talked about this for the past 2 episodes, but Anime of the Month, and this is where I review what anime series have been watched during the month, and let's get to it. So for this one, in this conversation, we have 2 new shows I'll be talking about that was aired early in the year, and as of the other will be the final season, to be honest. So we were starting off with one of a wholesome series I fell in love with, and that would be You and I Are Polar Opposites. Oh my gosh. If anyone's interested, I highly recommend this. Anyway, for the premise of this, it's pretty simple, but it hits in a really, really real way. It follows 2 characters who we all know, that is Tani and Suzuki. As the titles say, they are complete opposites. You've got one who's more outgoing, express, and kind of wears their heart on their sleeve, and the other is more reserved, quiet, and keeps everything bottled up. Also, to be honest, it would focus on other 2 couples we're going to see throughout this season, and as of this recording will be the second season, or aka the second core. And an adorable sweet, and the other is slow burn romance. Now, only we focused on our main couple, aka the wholesome, Suzuki and Tani, which it makes them work so well in the natural feeling to one another. There's no bigger dramatic push, but just a kind of a click, you know? Their relationship has built it on small interactions. The way they talk, support each other, and just for them, exist and felt grounded. Suzuki brings that warmth and openingness, while Tani balances out with a quieter, more thoughtful presence. And instead of clashing, those tropes actually create a really confident dynamic. It's a kind of relationship that feels stable. Like, there's an unspoken understanding between them. But then you got the other relationship you have that was introduced when we introduced the other girl in episode 5. That would be Nishi. So we have Nishi and Yamada, and now I called it the adorable sweet. They lean more into that soft, slightly awkward energy. Lots of cute moments. But to be honest here, there's a lot of it gave me a lot of moments. And a bit of nervousness. And that's a new love vibe. And that relationship felt lighter. Almost like it's there to remind you how exciting and tender things can be at the start. However, there's a however, folks. And you see Azuma and Taira, the slow burn. This is the one where you can feel the build-up, but there's tension, hesitation, and that contains will they, won't they energy, but it's less about what's happening at the moment, more about what could happen a bit later. You can tell the foundation has been set for something deeper down the line, and that will be occurred on the second half of the series. What's really cool is how these three dynamics could compare. They compiled with each other, with the three couples. So with Suzuki and Tani, Nishi and Yamada, and Azuma and Taira. So who the heck knows? But together, they make the world feel more real. Like love isn't just one thing. It's spectrum. And honestly, that's part of what makes this series become a hit so well. And however, the chemistry between the characters is also really well done, and it doesn't feel forced, to be honest. And it actually see how the differences create tension, and how the tension helps them grow. But the pacing wise, it's definitely more on the slower side, but it's expecting something super high energy. But if you're into a character driven stories, this really delivers. Animation wise, solid. Nothing insanely flashy, but it fills the tone of the story perfectly. It focuses on the emotions and interacting with the characters we all fell in love with already, just to kick off already. If I had to point things out on the downside, I'd say it can feel a bit predictable at times, but you can know what certain moments are headed. But honestly, there'll be times they'll make it up. Overall, this is one of those anime series I just fell in love with, completely snapped it away. But there's a connection and communication with learning to meet up with characters we've never seen before, or there'll be times in characters that you meet someone halfway, even when you're completely different. So this series really hits hard for me. So I'm looking forward for the second core later in July. So looking forward. Now we are moving on to one of my favorite crossover series, and that would be Isekai Quartet Season 3. But will be the final 3 episodes? Well, yes, it is. It's episodes 11, 12, and 13. Because it was aired in January of that time. What can I say? But honestly, this was fun. If you already know Isekai Quartet, you know the deal. It's a goddamn chaos. In the best way. Because you got characters from different Isekai worlds. So you got from ReZero, Konosuba, Shield Hero, Tanya, Overlord, and the list goes here from there. But it all thrown together into a ridiculous school setting. And without favorite characters in some points, it's just a whole thing just become watching their personalities bounce off each other. And those final 3 episodes for the dub really leaned into it. And it felt like everything ramps up a bit, more interacting, more callbacks, and just more of those, wait, these characters are actually talking to each other moments. But the show is so enjoyable. But props to everybody in the dub, and props to the cast from different shows are now they're a part of this incredible Isekai world, you know? And not only to be mentioned to the cast, they did a splendid job. And taking Crunchyroll taking on the spin on this, but they done it during the second season. But with this, it was very difficult because you got multiple characters be introduced. I think it's from the Eminence in Shadow. I think I said the name right. I'm sorry, I'm pronouncing it wrong. But those are the new characters. But the characters that we know, like Tanya, Kazuma, Subaru, and the list goes here from there. But yeah, there were so many comedic timing sharps. A lot of jokes landed really well for me, especially if you're someone who prefer more, I would say, conversational delivery. I think that's a series B for you. But what I like more about this series, it's not overall compiled anything, and it knows exactly what it is because it's short, chaotic, crossover comedy, and it sticks to that. And you get those quick character bits, exact reacts, and ton of fan service moments if you've seen the originals. And now, you're not familiar with the characters or the series they came from, they probably won't hit you anytime, but a lot of humor depends on you already know these characters and their world, and they, I would say, intertwine with each other, and I love the comedy of it. But yeah, if you're a fan of Isekai series, this is the series for you. These final episodes felt like a little send-off, and it sucks because we're not going to continue it. And I love this series when I first started watching it back in 2020, and that was my introduction to Re:Zero, Overlord, and Tanya. But I already know Konosuba already by this point, and I already fell in love with the characters from Konosuba. Then ever since Isekai Quartet, I was like, come on, where is Season 3? Where is Season 3? And then they announced a movie, and then I was so sad the movie never got dubbed. I was like, damn. And oh yeah, there's one more thing before we'll move on to a last series we'll be talking about. At the end of the movie, if y'all seen it or you haven't, but a little spoilery, but Otto and Garfield introduced in Season 3 of Isekai Quartet. I was like, oh, no way, they're going to be in the show with our favorite characters from Re:Zero and interacting with the Konosuba, Tanya, and the other characters. So I was like, oh my gosh. And yeah, I loved it. Everybody did a great job. So if you're interested with Isekai Quartet, I highly recommend it. Anyway, last series that we're talking about on this, and this will be the last time for this season, and we're going to talk about it on the next season. But as of now, I'll be announcing it here from this episode that I'll be doing it every month, what series I got into before we move on to the next part of the podcast when we go to the next season for this segment. So this segment will have its own series or something. I'll do something with it, but I'm not sure. So, anywho, this last series we'll be talking about here. You can't be in a rom-com with your childhood friends. Well, shit. Well, we already know the trope of rom-com anime, and things get a little messy in the best way ever. This one really leans into a classic dramatic trope where characters already have a history. They're not strangers, they just not in a meeting they already know each other for years. And of course, everything felt more personal. And they built it into a comfort and also a lot of unspoken feelings. It's like your very own goddamn rom-com animes or mangas or whatever. I'm looking at you, Rent-A-Girlfriend. And what it makes kind of a story like this is the tension between the characters. 4 characters, and you're fell in love with one guy. What the fuck? Seriously. And say, oh, I want to get close to this character. I want to get close to this character. Oh my gosh, man. I still love this series. To be honest, sorry I'm going on a rant here, but I still love this series, but what the fuck is this story, man? Is this gonna be like 100 girlfriends? Is this gonna be a Rent-A-Girlfriend or whatever? I don't know what the hell's going on. But to be honest, it played out the idea. But there would be moments where characters acted more casually on surface, but underneath they're jealous, hesitation, and fear of ruining of the friendship/relationship that you're gonna have. And of course, it's your own typical rom-com, and things can't stay simple, but there's a lot of misunderstanding, awkwardness, and there'll be some situations and sitting there like, if you two would just talk and they would solve in another 5 minutes. That's a charm of this goddamn rom-com genre. Sorry to say that, but it's true. The comedy helps balance the emotion side, but it just get a lot of heavy moments out of it. But there'll be laughs, cringe moments, and those are surprisingly... I don't know what to say more about it. Overall, if you're into a relationship drama mixed with humor, and especially if you're like a childhood friend trope, this is an easy fit for you. It's familiar, it is entertaining, and give you exact what you expect to see. and what you can invest on this show or whatever the other rom-coms I have at the moment. But last thing before we'll wrap things up here. Props to the Dubcast, to be honest. And everybody who worked on this show, they did a splendid job. And that was my interest, got into it, because I know a couple of the voice actors from different shows, and they've been a part of this. I'm going, oh my gosh, and I love these guys. And then when I first watched the first episode, I said, oh shit. And then when we got to when we were halfway through the episode of episode 1, I already spot on the best girl ever already. And I'm going, oh, she's the one. And I love her for it. And props to her VO. She did a splendid job. Anyway, that is a wrap for the anime of the month segment and the podcast itself. Hope you all enjoyed. Comment, like, and subscribe. If you all haven't subscribed to me yet, you'll miss out any content I'll be putting out. And hit the notification bell. Please do so. And that is all for me. And take care of yourselves. And see y'all next time.